Today on Cherry Picking, I buy the cheapest Ford highboy in the country. Well, sort of. That's right, I bought basically the cheapest Ford 4x4 highboy that I could in the United States. Now you're probably thinking, how is it the cheapest? And how is that a highboy? Because what you're seeing here, well, it's just a frame. And it is just a frame. In fact, what I actually bought was the cheapest frame for a Ford highboy in the country. And it's going to be one of the next projects coming up. Now you're probably thinking, why would I just buy a frame? Well, because if you look back to 3 years ago, you'll actually see a few videos on the 1967 Ford F-250 that I've had since high school that I'm building into the ultimate Ford F-250 highboy. Basically, making a King Ranch if Ford made a King Ranch in 1967. That's the goal. I'm using only period parts and only period equipment that may be plus or minus a few years, but that's the goal, is to basically create an entire King Ranch type build if Ford did it in 1967. And part of that is, well, making it a highboy, and that was always the goal with that truck. I always wanted to make it a 4x4, and I finally found the right frame to do it. And here it is in all its glory. Now, it's not very much to look at, but it's a lot more than it seems. Now, what I actually got here was a screaming deal. And when I say the cheapest in the country, it's basically the cheapest that I have ever found any one of these frames to come up for sale. And not only was it just the frame that was cheap, but the frame also came with a rear axle, a front axle, and the transfer case. This frame was actually listed on Facebook Marketplace for $500, which is already a screaming deal as it was. I had been looking for about 4 years, and for the past 4 years, every highboy frame that I have come across and lost out on was basically $1,000 or more. In fact, I have plenty that I could find in the $1,500 to $2,000 range, but none underneath about $1,000 or $900. I did find one time. I missed it. I was at work down the hill, which is about 50 minutes away from me. Guy didn't want to hold it, and so I missed out on it. It was actually pretty local to me up here, but it was $900, and it was basically in the same exact shape this was. The only difference was the one that I missed out on was a correct 67 to 72 highboy frame, and this is actually not. So we're going to go ahead and get into the differences between the Ford highboy frames compared to the two-wheel drive counterparts, and some of the differences on the later highboys, the 73 to 76 highboys, because they are just a little bit different. And then we're going to talk about the build and what we're going to do with it. Now, like I mentioned, this is actually a 76 highboy frame, which has just a few differences from the 67 to 72 frame, and we'll go over those. But we'll take a note at a few of the highboy specific items. The reason that these were called highboys in the first place is because from the factory, they actually made the trucks ride a little bit higher than stock, and they had this leaf spring front suspension in order to accommodate that front axle. But they're called highboys because the narrow frame width, which is I believe 34 inches, the later trucks were 38 inches, but the 34-inch width made it really hard to fit the transfer case tight up in there. So they're lowered quite a bit, and they actually hang down pretty far, as you can see here. And because of that, the factory added lift blocks, which some people say they aren't lift blocks, but they're lift blocks. They're 4-inch lift blocks on the back. They're just from the factory. And then just high sprung rate springs on the front in order to get it with the high ground clearance in order not to knock this transfer case out. Now, as you can see, I actually do have the correct factory support bracket for the transfer case, and we do have one rear drive shaft. Now, unfortunately, I do not have a front or intermediate drive shaft, which basically is from the transmission to the transfer case, because these actually operate on a divorced transfer case system, meaning the transfer case is separate from the transmission. Later Ford trucks actually married them together. It was technically a better design, but these earlier ones have the look and the stance, plus the leaf springs on the front. It's hard to beat. Now, another big difference you'll notice on these is the front cross member, which basically allows the attachment point for the leaf springs, as well as the cross member up here, which is significantly further forward than a stock two-wheel drive location, which is about a foot back. Now, as I mentioned earlier, this is actually a 76 frame, which has its differences. One of the differences being it actually has the really crappy power assist steering on it. This is, I believe, a newer thing for the later years. I don't know if it's 76 specific, but it's not exactly great, but it will actually hook up, and it doesn't look too terrible. I might actually just hook this up to my truck because I already have a power steering setup on my motor. So hopefully it doesn't leak too bad, and we might just use it temporarily until I convert it later on to a 78-79 style box. The 78, 79 style Ford 4x4 boxes are actually integrated power steering within the box rather than this power ram assist situation. It's kind of funky, similar to how the Mustangs had, the early Mustangs, and to be completely honest, it's just not very good. It's usable, but it's not very good. Now, like I said, the whole point of this was to make this thing the ultimate 67 highboy, according to my specs. And that means that this is just going to be version 1 because I'm not going to be able to get everything I want to get done, including that power steering swap later on, the box swap, plus a bunch of other things. One of the really important things that is going to be part of version 1 is the front axle. This 76 frame actually has a Dana 44 6CF HD front axle. Now, it took me a while to really figure that out because all the tags are completely missing, and I'm not an expert on these front ends. But I did notice about how large the knuckles were on these closed knuckle front ends, as well as the bracket that actually goes from the rubber line and has a hard line to the backing plate. Now, if you compare this to the front end on a regular highboy, on a regular Dana 44 front end highboy, you'll notice the size of this is significantly different. This is like almost a volleyball sized. And if we come out here and take a peek at the 72 Explorer that we've been working on in the past few videos, you can actually see that this one is more of a softball size. It's much smaller. And you can also see the difference with the bracket. Slightly different design, much lighter duty, and that's the way Ford just did it. Now, a lot of you are probably looking at that and going, hey, you said it's a 76, and that's a drum brake front axle. And those didn't come on 76s, and well, you'd be right. Now, I have the frame VIN right here, and it does start with F26 and has the RA, which basically dates this frame to 1976. However, in 1976, Ford actually completely swapped all of their front axles for disc brake front axles. So they went away from the drum brakes and they went all the way to disc brakes. They also had a few differences, like I think that they went to a ball joint style in late 76 or something like that. Unfortunately, someone has actually swapped the front axle out of this, so I get the drum brake heavy duty axle, which is fine. It'll work. You know, we'll rebuild it-ish, and it'll be temporary until I can find either a disc brake front axle or a Dana 60, 78, 79 disc brake front axle, which are virtually impossible to find, but that's the goal. We can dream, can't we? Now, I haven't ordered a Marty report on this frame just yet, but I probably am going to, because I'd like to know what this truck was and what options it had, because one of the options it does have are rear helper springs. So it has these extra brackets and an extra spring here, so it's got the heavy-duty rear suspension. That is actually pretty neat to me because my 67 actually has heavy-duty rear suspension already, and it was ordered that way from the factory because it was a camper special. And to be honest, I use the truck as a work horse. It's a tow pig. It's, you know, all the things I probably shouldn't be doing with a 4x4. That's what I'm going to be doing. So heavy-duty suspension, really happy about that. It's also got some old-school Rancho shocks on the back. As you can see there, it's got those Rancho suspension shocks, which I'm kind of hoping are in good shape because there are 2 of them. And anyone who has bought shocks recently knows they are not cheap. So kind of hoping those are in good shape so that I don't have to buy some. Unfortunately, the fronts are missing. What can you do? Now, one of the main differences between the 73 to 76 and the 67 to 72 frames is that the later 73 to 76 frames are actually 2 inches longer. So the frame is actually 2 inches further back, and they actually accommodated that 2 inches in the bed. So they basically extended the bed and the wheel arch for the bed back 2 inches. And so what this means is that even though you can technically bolt the cab and the bed directly to this, what you're going to have is about a 2-inch gap between the bed and the cab. That looks really funky, and you'll see a picture here. It looks ridiculous. There is a way to fix it. There's actually 2 ways to fix it. You could slice the frame and scoot it 2 inches forward, which kind of a big job, and to be honest, I don't want to be cutting on a frame. Or you can do what everyone else does, and you can drill out all these factory rivets for all of the spring bracket points and move them forward 2 inches, and then chop 2 inches off the back of the frame. Now, that obviously will change the center line right here where this axle snubber is, and because I have heavy-duty springs, these helper spring brackets also have to move 2 inches forward, which means that I have double the work because there's 4 there, 4 there, 4 on those, 4 on those. So there's 12 rivets each side that I have to move 2 inches forward. It is a whole ton of work to do that, but we're going to be doing it because I cannot stand the 2-inch gap that a lot of people leave. and I understand why they leave it. It's a lot of work, but I just can't leave myself to do it. So that's going to be one of the first things that has to happen to this frame before I strip it and paint it. We're going to have to move all those leaf spring perches forward. Now, one of the things that also tipped me off that this had a heavy-duty axle was the hubs. These hubs, as you can tell, have 6 bolts that bolt to a much larger outer hub section that does not stick out nearly as far as the regular Dana 44 hubs. It's also got these premium worn hubs. I don't remember what they're called. You could still buy them. They might have actually discontinued them. I believe they're 8072s if I remember correctly, or something like that. But pretty nice. They're not in the best shape, but they're also still here. So now you can't really tell the difference between the hubs, so you're gonna have to take my word for it. But as you can see, this is a slightly smaller hub. Unfortunately, the hubcap covers it, but it's got a tapered hub that comes out as opposed to the other one, which is just a large non-tapered hub that is much shorter and stubbier and then has that bolted piece to it. This bolts directly to the hub and it's much smaller. Now, one of the other major modifications that I have to make to this thing, because I'm planning on using a 460 and 5-speed, unfortunately, somebody welded these engine perches. Oh, sorry about the dog. Somebody welded these engine pedestals onto the frame, and I have no idea what they're for, what they fit. We think it might have been 6-cylinder or something, but they are completely welded to the frame. So I get to cut all of those off. I also believe they were scooted back because there's actually factory frame holes farther forward. So whatever they were putting in here, they were making it custom and decided instead of bolting it, they just welded it directly to the frame. So we get to fix that too. So that's pretty much it. That is the cheapest highboy frame in the United States. Now, a lot of you are probably saying, well, I could be doing it cheaper. You know, I could have inherited it, whatever, blah, blah, blah. Or I know a guy that knows a guy and I can get one for free. Whatever. It's the cheapest one that I've found. It was listed for 500 bucks. I got it for $3. So I'm pretty sure I'm making out pretty good, especially since it came with the NP205 transfer case, because that alone is worth the 500 bucks they were asking for this thing. And it's nice to have because I don't want to have to buy one. Now, the goal for this frame is to keep it basically the most budget highboy I can build. It might even be the most budget one on this platform, minus a few people who just have parts lying around. And the way that I'm going to do it is by using stuff that I already have. Now, of course, some of this stuff was purchased years and years ago, and I did spend money on it. But a lot of the times, a lot of the stuff that I'm using, like the 460 from another truck, that truck had parts that were sold off of it, and then the truck basically was free at that point because we made the money back that we paid for the truck, and so everything after that is basically free. Now, you don't have to count it like that, but I'm going to. Because my goal is to get this thing running, driving, and working for as cheap as possible, and just make an awesome 4x4 truck. So I'm going to do that, scrounging around everything that I already have, using parts I already have, finding pieces, and trying to make this thing work on a budget. If you're on truck YouTube at all, you probably have seen Craig 909's 67 highboy build, where he actually did very much almost the same thing that I'm doing. He put a 67 body on a 75 frame, might have been earlier, but it was a later frame, and he did the exact same thing. So if you haven't watched that already, go check out his build series. He's also doing a 465 speed in his truck, so it's kind of like an identical truck. Now, some people say I might be copying, but I've had this in the works since about 2018. Because in 2018, that was basically when I really decided that I wanted to make this thing 4x4, and I was always planning on putting the 460 and the 5-speed in it just for, you know, power and reliability. Because as much as I love FEs, having a 5-speed is a big deal considering I use this truck and I tow with it all the time, and I want to be able to still do that. So if you haven't already, go check out the Craig 909's build on his 67 highboy. It's an awesome watch. I think you'll enjoy it. And if you want to see another one, watch my videos. I'll have plenty of them. Now, in order to get a better understanding of what's going on in this frame, let's go take a peek at my 67 F250 that is currently sitting dead at my parents' property. So take it away, Aaron. This is the truck we're putting on that frame. This is my 1967 F250 that I've had since high school. I daily drove this thing in high school, and then even a few years after that, it was used basically as our tow pig. We towed it to the Pomona swap meet all the time with huge loads, bigger than it really should have been towing. It's gone through a lot of changes. Unfortunately, the paint has never changed. Now, that's not something we're going to tackle before Diff Duncan Jamboree, I don't think. I doubt that I'm going to have enough time to paint this thing. But this truck is a 67 F250 that is a factory camper special. It is a Ranger. So this truck had a lot of cool options on it. It's pretty well optioned, and I love it. And I don't want to get rid of it. Now, you might have been thinking I was talking about the blue truck going on that frame. The blue truck is not staying here forever. And as much as I would love to put that perfect original paint patina blue truck on that frame, it's just not right. this is the truck that I want it to be. This truck was ordered with a special paint code. It was a factory Mustang Lime Gold, two-tone with Wimbledon White, and I do plan on getting back to that eventually. But this truck has been basically a staple of my channel for the past 3 years. I've done a lot of work to it. We completely revamped the interior, and you can go watch those videos. The content is still cool to watch nonetheless. Now, this thing is powered by a completely, oh boy, bone stock 390 FE. That makes all of probably 170 horsepower and leaks oil really bad from every single orifice that it has. And more importantly, last time that we had this thing out, my dad was towing it back from Pomona Swap Meet, which is about 60 miles away, and about 5 miles away, blew a head gasket. So it smokes super bad and has virtually no coolant in it. The last things we did to this thing were we refreshed the top end of it, gave it a nice little paint job, and put a super cooler radiator on it. And that's pretty much all we've done to this thing recently. Now in the past, we completely redid the interior, which still looks about the same as it did. Pretty nice still. It's a little dirty right now, so don't mind all that. But it still looks pretty good. We've got the factory F600 dash cluster with the electronic tack that I have paired to my Durspark. Still have the original steering wheel. And we did put Mustang bucket seats in this thing because that was an option you could get. So I wanted to put them in, and I like them. Plus I've got the nice, pretty headliner. And actually, the very last thing we did to this truck, we put a cargo light in it. A correct 67 cargo light. And the switch is right there on the dash. We even put nice door panels that, well, the armrests need some work, but it looks nice. And like many things, it is a work in progress. But this is the body and the cab that are going to go on that frame, and a different motor, because this motor is basically toast and I don't feel like dealing with it. That door closes good. And if we walk over here to my parts piles, this is probably the motor that's actually going to go in it. And you're probably thinking, that looks like junk. And you're right, it does. It looks a lot like junk, but that is a 460 out of a 79 F250 Lariat, and I have a 5-speed tucked away somewhere. We're going to put a ZF 5-speed and a 460 with stock 460 engine mounts, and basically have a much beefier, more reliable, more modern, less leaky 385 series motor with a 5-speed with overdrive. Now, along the same terms of budget, this truck has basically made us money. We bought it for, I think, like $200 10 years ago, and we've sold more than that off of it at this point. So this motor is basically free to me. And that's how I like to view things, you know? You paid for it a long time ago, you sold some stuff off of it, you made your money back, it's free. Now, this right here is where the factory gap is on these trucks, and when you put the 73 to 76 frame on here, this opens up about 2 inches or so and sits really far back from the cab, and it looks ridiculous. So we're going to try to avoid that by moving those leaf spring perches forward. So that's pretty much the goal with this thing. So now you have kind of an idea of what I'm trying to do here. Put this really gross looking body and cab on that gross looking frame. We'll make them look nice, marry them together, and we got a highboy. Probably the cheapest one in the country, according to my opinion. Good timing. So anyways, let's go back to old Aaron. So that's my truck, and this is the frame, and basically we're just gonna marry them together. Now, of course, my timeline is ridiculous. I'm hoping to have this whole project at least running and driving in phase 1, we'll call it, of the 67 Highboy, done by, well, late May, which as of the time that I'm recording this is about 3 months total. Not a lot of time, but I want to get it ready for the Diff Duncan Jamboree that is held in late May in Gorman, California. Last year I took my 2-wheel drive 67 and I took along with me an off-road mini bike and my camper shell, and I had a whole bunch of videos on that. Well, this year I want to be correct and I want to have a 4x4. So that's the plan with this thing. Try to get it as nice as I can, fix the problems with it, get it up and running, do a motor swap, put some drive shafts in it, and take it down the road and see what we can do. So you're going to see that process here on cherry picking. It's going to take probably a few months to do, so you'll see the videos sprinkled in here and there, as this is a more of a long-term project rather than getting it done in a week type of build, because there's a lot to do on this thing, as I mentioned. So if you want to follow this build, be sure to subscribe, leave a like and comment on what you want to see and what you want to see specifically done to this thing, because my goal is to make it as nice as possible but as quickly as possible so that we can throw the bed and the cab and an engine in this thing. Now, I apologize again for the shorter videos. Life is crazy right now, but I wanted to make sure I got this out to you because this project is going to be coming fast, and so be ready for it, and well, I guess I'll see you next time on Cherry Picking. See ya.